Well, hello there, humans, hippies, earthlings, whoever you are, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, and whoever you are lucky enough to be doing it to. I'm Bushka on Blitz, and this one's for you, Defender of the Artillery, my very special mate from India who's sitting his exams at the moment, going hell for leather for that big medical bowl in the sky. Dota, hope you like it. This is the T54 Lightweight, and this is a patron-demanded post. Not sponsored, demanded. The patrons, they bloody well wanted to see the T54 Lightweight in action. They wanted to hear about it. They wanted to know about it. So we're here doing it. If you have thought of sponsoring the channel, Patron is just fantastic. We've been having fun doing training rooms, the voice chat, hanging out with the boys, having a giggle. There's private videos. There's all kinds of things. There's chat channels, voice channels, lots of stuff going on. But I digress. We're all here to talk, of course, about the 54 Lightweight. And the 54 has been making noise for a long time. It's been chugging down the track to Hype Town. It's the original Hype train, in fact. But the name of the town when it arrived was Vindication, because bugger me, the thing is an absolute monster. As we all expected it would be. It's the first real armoured light tank we've had in the game. And that's a really important thing. It's also a bit of a power creep tank. And by power creep, I mean it's a little bit better than the ones that preceded it, and it makes them a little bit more obsolete, and it turns the game on its head, and it kind of keeps you involved in the game, and you have to get the next best tank and move along with life. Now, I've obviously speeded up some of these clips just for the sake of brevity, because this is going to be a long review. I really enjoyed driving this tank, and in the making of the review, I may have driven a cubic arseload of games, so I had lots and lots of footage to choose from. It speaks to the way light tanks work, that in the past, tanks like the RU-251 and the SP-1C have relied on stealth and sneakiness. And that's always been the case, because light tanks have that amazing ability to drive at 70 kilometers an hour while maintaining the full spec camo of a tank that is actually sitting like absolutely stock still. And that's wonderful, because that's what light tanks have always been about. The 54 is at Tier 8. Now, Tier 8's been a bit of a cesspit of late. It's chock full of IS tanks and massive big hit pool premiums. It's been a real punish. This thing makes driving Tier 8 a lot more fun. And there's reasons behind that. But the primary one is that it can actually carry at Tier 8. Where the RU-251, while it can carry and can have some amazing games, it cannot hit point trade at all. You can't end up in a situation where you have to rely against 2 or 3 different tanks on getting some bounces and dodging some shots and angling your armor, because it simply doesn't have that. It needs to use agility to get around and flummox the enemy. The 54 Lightweight has an armor profile unlike any other light tank the game has ever seen. And that's one of the reasons why it's been pretty bloody controversial. People really got up in arms about the idea that this tank was going to come to Blitz and dominate. And I've got to say that if it had been at another tier, I could see that being the case. Tier 8, though, is such a cesspit of inequality anyway, that you've got your IS-3 defenders and your IS-6s and your recently buffed T34s and your louvers and it's just a lot of really, really strong tanks with big hit point pools at the same tier. The Boar 6, for instance, and the ISU 152s and the 54 Lightweight competes against those tanks now, and that's important. If it had been at Tier 7, it certainly would have been overpowered, but they introduced the LTTB, which is overpowered anyway. Let's talk about what really makes this thing interesting. That's the armor profile. Now, I'm using an IS-3 Defender with 221 millimeters of pen on its APCR. That's phenomenally large amounts, and you can see there that when this tank is running around, it can actually get bounces. And you can do the typically Russian thing of finding an angle where you can just expose your upper plate and your turret and move backwards and forwards, and it's very, very difficult to actually hit. And you can pen it. It's not a guaranteed bounce, and if you expose the drive wheel, you'll get hit through the drive wheel. But you can see that's a light tank. That is phenomenal. That's It's a bit sad, because the T44 has actually been superseded completely. The gun on the T54 Lightweight is, for all intents and purposes, the T44's gun. It's 7 rounds a minute, 280 alpha, 175 pen on your AP rounds, and 235 on your APCR. And you can see me pumping one through the drive wheel area there of the 54 Light. But look at that. That's the light tank with that angled upper glacis that is so reminiscent of the T54, its namesake at Tier 9, or the Object 140, or the T62A, or the T44. But this tank has all that the 44 can give you, but it has much higher top-end speed. It's got better mobility around the battlefield, which is saying something, because the 44 is a lightning-quick little thing. It's pretty good, pretty special like that. It's 700 horsepower at 31 tons. And yet, it still maintains the ability to bounce shots, which is just insane. 45 degrees of traverse and 48 degrees of turret traverse. So that's your tracks is 45 and 48 on your turret. But the ground resistance stats are pure. They're very, very good. So it gets out there and it's very mobile and gets around very, very quickly. Now, let's talk about light tanks in general and their role on the battlefield. I like to use light tanks, and this is something that I find to be very successful, and some of my highest win rate tanks are light tanks. And so I've had people have a go at me about teaching people to drive in particular manners. But I like to use them to spot, primarily, at the first instance of the battle, and then I like to set the rest of the team up by giving them targets, and then pick my strategy for the rest of the game and move along with it. And the catch with that has always been that you've got to be very, very careful, because light tanks are so soft and they can't really brawl without taking damage. Well, that's not the case with the 54 Lightweight. 54 Lightweight can bloody well brawl, exactly like a T44 can, which is phenomenal, because the T44 is probably one of the best brawlers at its tier. And look at this thing. I mean, it's driving around people like they're standing still. We miss a kill shot but that's all tier 9 tanks. And we're in a 54 Lightweight. It's that mobile that if you're smart about it, you can get around. And if you angle that upper glacis, and that's what I'm doing here, you're going to see, I'm going to get hit. This 62 Dragon, or 62, is firing a heap of heat. It's fair enough. He can't get through the upper glacis any other way with his standard rounds. So we're going to take a couple of hits from him. But I keep angling the tank, and I keep jerking it round, just like I'm driving a T54, or a T44, or an Object 140, or a T62A, and catch them on the tracks. And you can do that in tiny, small places, because this is a 700 horsepower tank that's 31 tons. It has 48 degrees of traverse on its turret and 45 on its tracks, and great ground resistance, and will power slide and can do 70 kilometers an hour. And you see this is the start of another game, and I'm going to look at the tanks and I'm going to see where they're going, and then I'm going to make my decisions from there. And if I get caught in a small enclosed space, I can brawl just like I would with any really strong Russian medium, and you all know how overpowered Russian mediums are in general. Look at this thing. I am moving around at the top of dead rail behind a rock. I've got Yag Panther, IS-3 on my right, there's an SP-1C behind him, there's a Louver there, there's a Borsig down on the bottom left. And I'm just going to work this area here. I'm going to angle my tank. I'm going to try and catch shots. I've got a turret that's strong enough to bounce shots as they come in. If they're not heat and they don't hit the lucky spots, then I'll be fine. And that's what you do with this tank. It's wonderful. Let's talk about the gun stats quickly while you watch me befuddle this poor old IS-3 on dead rail. 7 rounds a minute, 175mm of pen on your AP, 235 on your APCR. So your pen's not amazing, but really, I mean, you're going to hit flanks and you're going to hit tanks from the side and from unexpected areas so often that the pen's not going to be a big issue for you. 0.37 dispersion and 2.2 seconds of aim time. So it's just like driving a T44. The same kind of gun, exactly the same. So don't freak out about that. You've got 350 alpha damage too, and you're going to be able to use that on Borsigs and SP-1Cs and RU-251s and all those kind of tanks. And you see we bounce another one there from the IS-3, just takes out our gun module. And there we you gotta love this tank. It's just phenomenal. Let's bounce another one, because we're going to angle our hull as we go over the top of that, and then we're going to hit this IS-3. How frustrating is that for the poor old IS-3? He's not doing anything wrong, but heavies at this tier. I mean, you're dealing with a tank that has a nice dose of alpha. It's got a strong armor profile. It's going to go invisible to you at 200 meters while going 70 kilometers an hour. And it's forgiving of mistakes. I'm going to play you a couple of games here, and I'll show you why. Or rather, I'll tell you why. This is really poor gameplay. I push on that IS-6, I never should have pushed. He pushed over, but then I pushed back. And then I've driven past in this T34. And there's another IS in spawn. And he is not AFK, by the way. So I've got to barney around all over the place. And I'm going to get hit again by the T34 as we go past. And I've now got no hit points left. And we've only a minute and a half into the game. This is why light tanks are so strong. And I could be doing this in any light tank, not just a T54 light. You can think and strategize and be smart after being stupid and can have one hit point left and spend the rest of the game running around on the flanks and the skirts of the battlefield, just sucking up and soaking damage, not soaking, sucking up and sinking damage into the enemy. And being an absolute freaking pest all the time. And that's exactly what I do for the rest of this battle. That Tiger 1's got a stock turret. I know if he's got a stock turret, he's probably working on his crew skills. He's sub 100%. His view range is going to be crap. I'm going to sit right at the back here and pump this Tiger 2. Not Tiger 1, sorry. And because of that, I'm able to help my teammate. And I'm able to save this Borsig, who ends up not doing much damage at all. But I save him and I use him. And smash the poor old Tiger 2, which is fair enough. And I did that because I went around and did something really stupid on that drive-by on the IS-6 and then drove all the way to the back and used my speed and agility to get somewhere else. And then I'm going to do the same thing again. I'm going to drive all the way to the flank. We've got 4 tanks left, but I've got absolutely no faith, having played this game for quite some time, in the ability of my teammates. So knowing that, I'm just going to screw around at the back here a little bit, look for shots. Still not spotted, looking for shots, can't find anything. Using the teammates that I have there while I don't have any hit points left. That Borsig was silly enough to just roll up, miss a shot in the 34. What should you do then? Well, drive the hell away. I'm saying negative the object 704, but if he's going to move all the way up, I'm going to move to the other side of the game where I put their tanks between me and him, and I'm going to give myself shots. I've been playing on next to no hit points for the entire match. Since the 5-minute 30 mark, I've had 3 minutes of outputting damage. And we're going to end up with, I think, nearly 4,000 damage in this game. Because light tanks can do this. Light tanks can spot and they can push and they can make errors and they can still get away with it. Because it doesn't matter how many hit points you've got left. If you've got the ability to run away from these big, heavy giants, and you can keep them at arm's length. You can take advantage of your firepower and your camo and everything and that mobility. And he doesn't get a shot at me. Rest of the game. Object 704 is going to dust him. He was looking for me. He can't get there. Look at this thing go. It is an absolute Bobby Dazzler. I'm using AP rounds. I'm not using APCR. It gets to get shots from flanks, so you don't have to worry about it. I mean, why wouldn't you want to drive a light tank? This is why I love them. They are dynamic. They're incredible. You can make massive errors in them and then do nearly 4,000 damage. The farting bear, my good mate there, he died. You've got to learn how to flank in them. And by flank, I don't mean just drive to the left and keep going. Spot a team. Figure out where they're going. And then flank. And you can see here I've done exactly that. I'm on mines. I'm on the top of the hill. I've figured out where they all are. I'm going to flank. And that'll do it. And I'm going to move around. And I'm going to leave that. E75 is now going to chase me. He's going to drive down there and chase me. But I'm going to move over. I'm going to hit the Jag Panther 2. All side shots. All side shots or arse shots or however you want to talk about it. They're all shots that are easy and in the back of tanks. Or in the side of tanks. I'm not doing anything frontally here, even though, and this is the key, that's always been the key in light tanks, even though this tank can do that, it can actually dogfight and brawl, and that's why it's so strong. You can see I've spotted tanks, I've looked around, I've realised where they are. I'm then going to move across here to the left and just put shots in on the flank and be a pest. I've got my upper glacis in the same line as this hill here. You can see that AT-15. I can see he's got one coming in. I throw one at him, bounce another, and then I'm going to move further down along the flank and get more shots into the sides of tanks because I like to do things the easy way and not get hit and still put damage out. Now you can do this in lights, but you can't bounce in an RU-251 like that. You just won't. And especially, you saw before, that was an IS-3 Defender. It's 221mm of pen on its APCR. And we were bouncing shots off the upper glacis of a T54 Lightweight. So this is the final game. I've bored you to tears with this, I'm sure. And this is against a very, very good platoon. And I'm going to show you exactly what happens when you put it all together. This is the game I chose because it highlights the absolute amazing ability of a light tank. You drive forward, you spot the entire enemy team, you Barney out of there like a headless chicken, you've spotted everyone, and then you figure out where you should go from there, and you do it all. And the game starts at 7 minutes. By 5 minutes, I will have spotted all 7 tanks and be firing from behind them after resetting my camouflage. They've got 2 very, very, very good players on their team who are far better than I am. You know, big purple guys. There's a DH guy, and DH are a very strong clan. Then I've got Path and Skid in there, and Erwin Rommel, and all the boys, and they're great fellas. And these guys are much better players than I am. But it's 6 minutes in, 1 minute in, and I am turning around after spotting their whole team, and there's just about the best player on their team sitting at the back. And he's now had to move in a Borsig. He's been spotted. Their whole team's been spotted. Our team is just going to town on them because this is what a light tank can do. It's so mobile. Its camo is incredible. You can see I'm able to just be sitting here at the back. I'm respotted now because my camo reset. The tank has such incredible camo that if you're not firing and you're driving, it doesn't make any difference. It'll still reset for you as long as you're far enough away from them. The light bulb goes off again because guess what? The camo's reset. No one can see me. And the rest of the team has unlimited spots. I've fed them targets. They've moved up. They're smashing the reds. And yet this tank can do all that, and it can hull down. I ask you, and I mean, I love it. And you're going to see that IS-3 Defender. I'm now going to go and side scrape off this rock. IS-3 Defender, IS-3, sorry. And I'm going to pull back and get shots in the back of the Luva, who, I think that's OO Monkey, who's a very, very good player. I'm side scraping off the left here. Haven't been hit yet. I mean, this IS-3. And then I'm going to drive around him. So I'm bouncing shots. It's an incredibly strong tank. Yeah, there you go. That's the T54 Lightweight. Get it while it's hot. Mate, I cannot recommend it highly enough. And that's the game I chose because I think that highlights light tanks. I think that shows you how you can use a tank with that much speed, that much agility, that much armour and firepower. And you can see there, Muzakura, like he's just a freak. But the lightweight did that. The speed, the camo, everything did that. I did next to no damage, but the tank really shone because we put it in a position to be successful, and it helped the rest of the team do more damage. That's what a light can do, but at the same time, this tank can then turn around and go hull down against a couple of big heavy tanks and move and jiggle and get bounces and carry the day. What do you want? This is the tank for you and me, boys. And I still think this is the second best tank in the line. I love the LTTB more than this. Great fun times, mate. Russian lights. What are you going to do? I'm Bushka on Blitz. Thank you very, very much for watching. I know that's longer than my normal reviews, but I felt there was a lot to talk about with the T54 Lightweight, and I'm glad that we did. As always, if you'd like to sponsor the channel, click on the Patreon link there and become a sponsor. It's a pretty cool thing, and there's some very, very funny stuff going on at the moment. We have a good giggle. Look after your families, guys. Don't take it all too seriously. Stay hang loose. Stay safe on the battlefield. And until next time, bye for now.